back, guys, to the channel. Today it will be a very interesting topic. It will be all about the Saudi transfer embargo. So the Saudi Football League is raiding the summer transfer window, as we all know. So many big stars so far have joined, and it looks like a lot more will be joining. So you've got Karim Benzema, who's gone to Al Ittihad, N'Golo Kante, who's also gone to Al Ittihad. Kalidou Koulibaly set to join, so is Edouard Mendy, Hakim Ziyech. Marcelo Brozovic is in talks with Al Nassr as well. You've also got players like Sam Niguez, Irving Lozano, Callum Hudson-Odoi. They're all in talks with Saudi football clubs, and Saudi clubs are interested in them players. So let's start off with what I think about it. Could we see this coming? Well, maybe so, because the Saudi government are in control. I think it's about 75% of the actual clubs in the Saudi Pro League. So if the government's in control, then you'd kind of expect there to be like more movement in like transfers and more control and more dominance in the clubs in Saudi Arabia. Now, the question is this the right thing to do? I think if they're trying to put a good mind, I think if they're trying to become one of the best, then maybe that's what they're trying to do. Get the big names, become the best. It doesn't really always work like that, because I think Alexander Ceferin, the UEFA president, did say something quite logical, that they are trying to get these big names, but they don't develop in like their own players, academies or coaches really. So that's something you got to really think about. This might not work. I don't think it's going to work, because I do kind of think what Alexander Ceferin said about they're making the same mistake as China. Maybe they are, but to be fair, Saudi Arabia, look how powerful they are in sport now. So maybe it might work better for now. We don't know how it's going to affect football in the long term, do we? But I think you kind of expect in the short term, especially this summer, that I think the Saudis are playing it by the cards and they are in firm control. And you've seen that already with the likes of Benzema, Kante, and Ziyech all going to Saudi Arabia. So yeah, I think Saudi Arabia are doing something that they think is good. I don't think it is, because it's not the way you really want a country to make a good image of yourselves, if that's what they're trying to do. Like, maybe I can understand why football players are going. I can understand that, either because they're past their peak, they've done everything they can, and they want a new challenge, or they just want the money, to be fair. And surprising that I'm a Wolves fan, I can't believe Ruben Neves is going. So I wouldn't understand why he would go there, because like Barca were after him. I think Manchester United were linked to him a while ago. Arsenal, I think, have been after him as well. So the fact he's gone to Al Hilal does make you wonder whether they actually want to actually play for the passion, because I don't really understand why Neves would go there. I did not expect this transfer to happen at all. Like, there was no talks with Al Hilal before like I found out that an agreement should have been reached. 47 million quid, it might be a decent amount of money for Wolves, but if you look on the other side of it, the Saudis are actually in the driving seat really in terms of transfers so far. So it's just, I think it's hard to say really whether this will work a lot better than how it did in China and how it panned out. Like, because I think if you remember the Russian club Antsy, I think their name were. I'm not saying this might happen to Saudis, because they got loads more money and they've got a lot more power in sport. But if you take Antsy, for example, they're a Russian club, and I think in like 2011ish or something, I think they had some investment from a billionaire or something. They brought in Roberto Carlos, Samuel Eto'o, and I think they had Gus Hiddink as manager. They were really good until I think they ran into financial problems. They couldn't register a team, and now they're not even registered and have a license. So I'm not saying that's going to work out with Saudi Arabia. I personally don't, because if the government's taking control of most of their football teams, and look how dominant they've been so far, I think you'll expect a lot more signings to happen. So if we go through like the kind of players who've gone, Benzema I can kind of understand. Well, I don't really know. Would he have benefited staying at Real Madrid for another season? Maybe, but I think the fact he's gone to Saudi Arabia, I think that is a Muslim country, and he feels happy to be a Muslim in that kind of country. So maybe he wants to change his scenery, and he wants to be somewhere where he's a lot more respected. I'm not saying he was not respected at Real Madrid, but I think in terms of the person he is and his religion, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I can't really argue against that. Kante, I mean, you don't really know what to say. I think there's some up with Chelsea. There is something up with Chelsea, I think. Anyway, I think there's a company that has a stake in Chelsea or in the consortium, a Saudi one. So it is kind of a bit unusual to say the least. It is a bit suspect, you would have to say, because you've got Koulibaly going, Ziyech going, Mendy going. You've already seen Kante go. So it does seem kind of strange that many Chelsea players are going. I mean, Ziyech, I mean, I can understand why he's going. I mean, if I was in Ziyech's shoes, I'd rather be going to Al Nassr than Chelsea anyway, the way the mess is. Mendy, I mean, I can kind of understand that really because he's not really had a great season. Since that game against Leeds, he's done nothing really, and Kepa's taken his place. Koulibaly, it's not really a surprise seeing these players go, to be honest, because Koulibaly was very underwhelming this season as well. Many people expected him to be like a massive upgrade in the defence, and I think he even said himself he doesn't want to be seen as a Rudiger replacement. Well, in terms of replacing players in the squad, he hasn't done that well. He's not done that well, so you can kind of understand why he's gone. What does this mean, like, for the future of football? Does this mean that Saudi's are gonna try and do this every year? Maybe, but I think they're trying to do something for a project in 2030 to build up their football image. If they're trying to get these big names just for that, then fine. But the fact you're spending lots of money and you're not necessarily focused on other aspects of football, you just want the big names to become a big part of the sport. And I can kind of understand that because Saudi Arabia have had massive involvement in football over the last couple of years. You've got the Newcastle takeover, a lot of star players going. So it's going to be curious to see how this ends up long term. Because, like I said earlier on, China tried the same thing. That hasn't gone well. Look at that now. But like I said, I think Saudi Arabia has a better chance of having success with this because obviously with the power they have, the money they have, the consortiums, the dominance they have in sport, like the PGA Tour and Live merge as well. That's evidence of that. So you've got to wonder, what will this mean for European clubs? Does this mean they're going to lose a lot of star power to these Saudi clubs? You've got a lot more players. Could this be like a divide or something? I don't know. You could say that. You could see a similarities between Live and the PGA Tour with this because you might have players, oh, this is very interesting. I like the project they're doing here. Build it up, and then it'll be a very massive league in the next few years. And you have players who want to stay loyal and be in Europe. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out long term because I don't know if they'll make the same mistakes as China and like Russia did. I think what they're doing is, I think in their way, good in their opinion. I'm not sure if it's good at all really because if you're getting all these big names, you're trying to make it attractive, right? But it's not just about getting the big names at all. You've got to focus on your clubs as a whole, not just getting players, because it's not just about players and money in football. It's about development. It's about other aspects of football as well. It's about making sure you have the right facilities in place, the right staff in place, and you run the club well. So it's not really smart what they're doing because it's not it's not a good strategy in my opinion, because if you're just getting all these big star players and trying to build your way up the ladder, it's not really going to win well because you're not doing what the other leagues are doing, who are really competitive. They're run well, and the government are taking control. They want the money spent, so it's going to be very interesting to watch. I do expect a lot more signings to be made very soon. You never know who's going to join. I think there's been a couple of rumours about Marcelo Brozovic going to Al Nassr as well. That might happen. So I'll be honest, there'll be a lot more signings, in my opinion, to the Saudi League, and it's very interesting to see how that happens this season, what players think about it. Well, you heard Ronaldo say recently that he thinks it's improving, it'll be a top 5 league soon. Maybe he thinks that because of the project now, but that's now. It's not about now, it's about what it's going to be like in the future, because you don't really want something that's going to last not that long and then be a failure in the long term. It's about starting up now, building your way up, and making it a success. Maybe it might, because Saudis have got a lot more power, they've got a lot more money, they're worth billions and billions, so maybe it could work, but it's going to be very interesting. So, guys, thank you very much for watching this video today. I will see you next time in the next video.